Welcome back to Rachel's Whimsical Arts. My name is Miss Rachel, and today I'm going to show you how to paint a nebula in space using watercolors. This was the first attempt that I did with class, and I'm going to show you how to do two sides of your pages to experiment with. So you're going to split your page in half and have two sides to try two different color variations of painting with watercolors your space nebula for your Explore Space art project. Now this is a 12-inch paper, so 6 inches across is my halfway point. So I'm going to use my ruler to make this go. So I have my paper here. Look at this. This is a vertical. And then I'm going to draw a horizontal line from left to right. So I've got two sides to paint on. So this way I have two different color combinations I can try and experiment with. The other thing that we're going to do is, because I don't want my paper to move around on me when I'm painting, and I want it to dry evenly, is I'm taping my paper down so that it stays put when it dries. So the tools that I have are a paintbrush, maybe two, maybe a small one and a big one. There's a small one that comes in your kit. You can use Crayola watercolors if you want those. Those work perfectly fine. You can also use other kinds of travel cases of watercolors for your paints. Basically any kind of watercolor paints that you have, you can use to add the colors. The other thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to think about what kinds of colors in space that you want to paint. Do you want it to look like it is in values and colors of blues and greens or blues and purples? Or do you want it to have some red and orange tones? My suggestion is to think about the color wheel. So if you like blues and purples and violets, that's what I did here with layering of colors. You could do that. So I'm going to do these colors that are here in this zone. If you like greens and blues, then you're going to do some light green to dark green and blue, and then into the dark blue violet. If you like fire colors, you could do orange, maybe a little bit of yellow for your lightest parts, then gradually go darker to red. And then you're going to have some red, violet, and violet as your dark areas in space. So once you decide, then you're going to take your brush and some of the space, so this is going to be a different color than this color. Some of the space, I'm just going to leave water on it, like this. And notice I'm using my brush in circular motions. Circular motions will help you blend the paints, and you're going to have to do layering, okay? So that means I'm going to take a little bit of my dark blue, and I'm doing layers of blues and light blues and dark blues to get the colors to change by overlapping them a little bit at a time. This process is fun, but it does take time and patience to play with and see how the colors blend. I am going to leave some of this paper white for now because I might decide to add a pale color with it. So I'm going to stick for the first one. I'm going to do similar to what I did with the other one. I'm going to have some violets and purples and blues. And my other one, I'm going to do some reds and oranges so you can see what that looks like. Notice how I'm blending them together in a circular motion on my paper. And I'm not adding too much water. I already put water down, so I'm not adding more water to it. In other words, I'm taking my colors and I'm getting my brush wet, and I'm only going to do a little bit of dab, get some of that paint on the tip of my brush to blend it into the paper and into the other paints. Again, any paint you use, whether it's Crayola or whatever you have for your paints, you're going to just dab a little bit onto your brush and you're going to do a circular motion on top of the wet paper. Okay. So see, when I do it in circular motions, it blends it and makes them look like clouds or bursts of color. Instead of painting it from left to right like this, then that would make it look more like a landscape or a sunset, and that's really not the look I'm trying to go for. I'm trying to make it look like clouds of color out in space, like a nebula. Okay. Now I can put some of this lighter red violet over here, and that's kind of fun to see how it mixes up in this space. But I know that this is my first layer. I'm adding a tiny bit of water, but look, I'm spreading it out so it doesn't puddle anywhere in one big puddle of water. If I do a big puddle of water, then the paints won't cooperate with me, or it might not dry evenly. And I'm gonna do layers, which means I'm gonna do this first layer, let it dry before I put on the second layer, okay? So here's a little bit of water. Now I'm gonna take some of this lighter blue that I did over here, and I'm gonna rotate it. I do like this dark blue violet I have over here next to the white on my Crayola, because it is like a very dark blue with a hint of purple in it. And when I put layers of this over the blue on top, it blends really nicely. I'm gonna let this dry some more because I like how that's blending right there. And I'm gonna blend a little bit of this purple in with this blue so it looks like it's coming together, like it's supposed to be there. Okay. There is this light blue in here that I'm using a little bit of, but I know I'm gonna add more of this dark blue on top of it to make it stand out more. Now this is my first layer. Like I said, I gotta let that dry a little bit before I can add more color to it to make it look like it has depth and darker spots. So while that's drying, I'm gonna use a different brush for my reds, and I'm gonna put some water down over here. Now when you use the reds, like I suggested with the color wheel, it's not just gonna be yellow to orange to red. You're gonna have a dark area. So that's why I'm gonna go back to the dark blue and the dark violet. But that's gonna be last because I wanna put the reds and the oranges first. So those are the lighter colors. You always start with the lighter colors first. All right, so let's do yellow. Ah, very nice yellow. We've got bright yellow. I'm gonna put the bright yellow in some spots right here. It's gonna be a trail of yellow. I'm gonna do it like that. Then I'm gonna go back and do some orange. Ooh, look at that orange. It's like an orange red. Wow. So I'm gonna rinse off my brush and get a little bit of that paint off so that I can blend it easier and it's not too dark. And if I want to, I can go back. There's light orange and a dark orange in my Crayola box. It's not a box, but the palette. So I like the yellow and the orange together. I think that's really fun. But I also like red, and I want this to be really red on the edges, so it's blending from the orange to the red on the very tips or the edges of it. So, I'm letting that do its thing up here. I'm just gonna put a tiny bit of blending. And while that's doing a fun thing, a fun effect on the outside, now I'm gonna go back and get some of this dark purple, this red violet I should say, and I'm gonna put the red violet on the outer areas that are white still, because the red violet will blend into that red. And on the Crayola, if you have Crayola, this palette's nice because down here this is the red and here's the red violet right next to the red. And that's the color that I'm using. Okay, so when I feel like I've got a lot of it surrounding the yellow orange, then I'm going to go back and do some of this dark blue, because outer space isn't super bright. There's some dark areas that we have to cover up. And I'm still using the circular motion with my paintbrush. So you could do this also with green and blue if you wanted to do green and blue. On the color wheel, there's light green, green, and blue-green, and then blue. You could do this version here if you like that and have some touch of yellow somewhere so it pops. That would be fun to see what it looks like. I think that would be really neat effect to see greens and blues together. But the nice part about doing nebulas in outer space is you can just use your imagination and you can look at pictures as references too to see what they look like. But overall, you can make your own nebulas and galaxies. All right, so now that I have a bunch of this dark blue violet here, I'm feeling better about it because it's got a really dark area, but it still has to dry before I can put more layers on. So I'm going to leave the left side alone. Now I'm going to go over here on my right side and get some more layers of purple and make some, not all of the purple, just some of the areas of the purple really dark. Okay, really dark. See how I'm just doing little patches? I'm imagining them as like little nebula clouds of color in space. And the reason why I want to have dark areas is because not all of outer space is bright. There's a lot of darker areas too, right? So I'm putting some of this dark purple down. There's this red violet, that's good. Because I want some of that red violet to stand out, because those are like the really bright purple areas. Yeah. Then I'm gonna go and do some of the blue. Yeah, well, we gotta have some dark blue areas too. Even if it's just like, I want this center blue area to be standing out. Not all of it, just this part, maybe just right here too. And have fun with the color. See how it blends because the paper's still a little bit wet. It's not too wet. It's wet enough. Okay. If you like this dark, but you want it to be just in some areas, you can put this dark blue violet on top of the blue to see how it changes it too. Which I think is fun. All right. So this is turning out to be more layers of color, and I'm enjoying it more now that I see more of it happening. There's changes happening and there's more purples. Now this side with the orange and red, while I think it's pretty cool, I do think it needs to have some more depth, which means I need variations of dark purple and dark blue. So here we go. Let's get some of this blue down. Some of these areas, and some of this will be that dark purple. Just in the corners. That's what I'm going to go with. And I think I like that blue there too. I'm going to make this really dark right there. So while you're adding your second or third layer of purples or blues or reds, notice I'm not putting it everywhere. I'm not coloring over all of it in big strokes. I'm using small brush strokes because I want some of these areas to be pronounced or darker and some areas to stay light. Okay? Because it's nice that I'm doing purple next to purple because I can kind of fill that in. sometimes it's too dry and I need to just put a droplet of water on there. Not a lot of water, just like a little drop. And then it works a little better. The other thing that I'm going to suggest too is for the orange red. I'm using a different brush so it stays kind of that orange yellow color. Try to put some more orange in the dark orange red area so that it blends with the red. And try to put a little bit more red in the darkest red areas so it stays really bright. So I'm putting a lot of red right here. There. And I did put a couple of dots with the edge of my brush because sometimes picking up your brush and putting it back down on a wet spot changes the effect too. And I think I want to have a little bit of this, where did I do it? Oh, purples, the purple red. I think I want to have a little bit of this purple red right here. That's the Crayola purple red. And as I'm saying that, I'm going to put a little bit more blue right there, just in that little quadrant. Okay. So this is me basically adding details of color, which you can do too, to make it look interesting. You can say, well, I'm going to put a little more dark parts in that area surrounding it. Now that I look at this, it kind of looks like a pear shape. That's okay though. It doesn't have to make a shape, but sometimes it does turn into a shape. You can see shapes into abstract pictures or clouds when you look up at the sky on a cloudy day. I love looking at clouds sometimes and just to get images and use your imagination. All right, so at this point, we're just touching it up. The next step is you let it dry, and when it's dry, you look at it and you decide if you like it or if you want to add more color when it's dry. Because when it's dry, you can do another layer to bring out the colors even more. And then when it's totally dry, at that point, you would put stars on it. And I will show you that in another video of how to do stars. Okay? But that's a different video, because this has to be dry before we can do the stars. We will use acrylic paint or white pigment. Tempera could work too, or even a white gel pen can work. All right, so that is the first step of painting your nebula or outer space pictures with watercolors. I hope you enjoy this and have fun with it, and I hope to see you again soon in the following part 2 video about outer space paintings and mixed media. Thanks for coming. Be kind. Let's shine, be kind. And again, this is Rachel Simpson on Rachel's Whimsical Art, and I'll see you again later. Bye-bye. Welcome back to Rachel's Whimsical Arts. This is part 2 of the acrylic painting of the flicking of stars onto our galaxy or nebula painting that we did in watercolors. I did 2 halves last time. I did this half. I split my 9x12 mixed media paper in half with a ruler. I just drew a line down the middle so I could draw 2 different kinds of space or galaxy outer space pictures. So this one was done in blues and purples and layering about 5 layers or so, and this one was done in reds, yellows, and oranges with some purple and dark blues for the dark areas. All of these were done in watercolors. You can use Crayola, any kind of watercolors that you have. And then let it dry after you do those 4 or 5 layers or so of some dark areas and keeping some areas lighter from the white paper. Then we're going to use some liquid acrylic. So I have just white, titanium white acrylic paint, and I added water because it was heavy duty or a heavy thickness. heavy body, I should say. So I added water to make it like a little more liquidy, and it's like the consistency of, like, I would say a shake. And then we are going to use some brushes. Now you can use any kind of stiff craft brush, or you could use a toothbrush that you haven't used for brushing your teeth with. You could use that. So I have a variety of brushes that are stiff that I use for glue that are pretty stiff that will work to flick the acrylic paint onto the galaxy painting. Okay, so I'm going to try all three and see which one I like better. I think I might like this one best, and I'm just gonna get a little bit of paint on the end. I don't want too much paint, it's just on the very tip of my brush. And for flicking, you are going to want to use your finger, okay? So it is a flicking motion with your finger where you're gonna scrape it. And then you see there are stars. It looks like stars with flicking of the acrylic paint onto the nebula or space picture. Now, say you like the way it looks, but you want to have some more stars in some areas. There's a couple ways you can do it. One, you can flick some more, get the excess paint on it off of the brush. Or two, and I'm going to try this other brush. See how this works. It's okay. I like the bigger brush better. Okay, so that's my answer there. Then after that, if you want to add some more dots, you can either use a small brush like this to get just a tiny bit of paint on the end, and you can do a few extra dots that are bigger. You will have to re-dip it. And if you don't like that method, then the other way you could do it is you could take a gel pen, okay, and you could basically draw small little dots with the gel pen to get some more dots on there. This would take more time to use with your gel pen that way. I think it's okay, but it's not my favorite way to do it. Personally, I like the paint. I like the paint method because this is challenging to draw a gel pen on top of a painted surface. You can do it, but it takes extra time and extra work. So that is the last step of making our nebula or outer space painting with watercolors and acrylics. But this way you can see how it's starting to look more and more like a galaxy or a nebula. The stars are really the focal point in some ways because it'll show you how this looks really cool, like it's an outer space picture. And while you put dots on it, you know, you can think about it and go, do I like it? Do I have enough stars? Do I want to add more flicking? Because you might want to do more flicking. And that's kind of fun to splatter paint. Honestly, I like doing this. So, flicking again. Yeah, now I've got a lot of stars on there. Cool. All right, so have fun. Enjoy the process. Thank you for watching Rachel's Whimsical Arts and the video on how to make your own space nebula using watercolors and acrylics. My name is Miss Rachel, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Be kind. Let's shine. Thank you. Bye-bye now.